Hi, everyone. Come on in. Welcome to Mastrius. I'm Julie deBoer, and I'm going to give you all a minute to get settled. If you're new to Mastrius, we're glad to have you. Please feel free to add your questions and comments to the chat. There's a little toggle at the bottom where you can select everyone so you can all see your comments during the event. We love to hear your comments and questions. If you're a member, hello, guys. Thanks for coming and taking advantage of your free ticket. And I'll put a wee bug in your ear. Our next online art show will be announced tomorrow. So keep an eye on our Instagram. And we'll have the full 2023 art show schedule for you soon. So stay tuned for more. And if you haven't heard, we now have an event recording library available. So you can watch all of our awesome live events like this one at your leisure. Currently, we have over 70 events to enjoy. We've got demos, panel discussions, critiques, master art wars, and interviews. Check it out at mastrius.com. And as always, I will stay on after the event to chat more about Mastrius for those who are interested in joining our community and working with a master artist like Ned Mueller to receive mentorship. And I'll give away a 1-month events membership as well to one lucky guest. So stick around for that later. Today we have a special event lined up, as you know, because you're here, 2 hours of Ned Mueller. I've been looking forward to it all week. The first hour will be an interview for our Artist Podcast Diaries. And we're going to hear Ned's story, his 60-year art journey. And the second hour will be a presentation Ned has prepared on the art of seeing, the benefits of drawing and how that furthered his career. Ned is passionate about drawing as a foundation for successful art, whether you're a painter, realist, impressionist, or abstract. Strong drawing skills underpin them all. And I'm so pleased to welcome Ned Mueller. Ned joins us from Seattle, Washington. Born and raised in the US, Ned has been drawing and painting all his life. He is our most experienced master artist mentor here at Mastrius, with over 60 years dedicated to his art career and to teaching. He's not only a Mastrius Master, but one of the very few designated masters with both the Oil Painters of America and the American Impressionist Society. Ned has worked as a Disney concept artist. He's also trained Disney artists. He has been a courtroom artist and in advertising and has drafted storyboards, illustrations, nuclear and architectural drawings, you name it, he's done it. He's been a full-time fine artist for over 35 years, winning numerous awards and exhibiting in some of the best galleries and shows across the US. Ned believes if you can draw, you can paint anything. On top of continually challenging himself to improve his own painting, he loves to teach and share his many decades of knowledge and experience, and we love having him at Mastrius. Welcome, Ned.
Thanks, Julie.
How are you?
Great to be here. We've done this a few times.
Yes, we have. We are masters at this. I've been looking forward to chatting with you, Ned. And just one more intro, my own. I'm Julie deBoer. As most of you know, I'm an artist and one of the founders of Mastrius. I paint in acrylic, large whimsical landscapes, and am being mentored currently at Mastrius as well, which has been a game changer for me. I also have the joy of being a mentor for aspiring artists, which has been a great blessing. Anyways, let's get on with it. All right. Ned, here we go. Are you ready?
Yeah, as ready am I ever going to be. I should be pretty, and I am pretty, because these kind of interviews, podcasts, I've probably have done 20 of them, you know?
Yeah, this might be boring for you.
Well, no, it might be boring for everybody else, but
I doubt it. In your 60 years experience, there's so much good stuff I'm excited to get into. How shall we start? Do you want to give us like a little peek at kind of what the 60 years looks like? Or I'm really curious about how you started, because I know you've been an artist since you were a kid, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started when I was 4 years old, if you can believe that.
Nice.
doing this for 78 years.
Wow, wow.
Yeah. But I love it. You know, you don't do this if you don't love it. And another artist friend said, you know, and it's true, we don't pick art, it picks us.
Uh-huh.
You know, I mean, I don't know how, but, and it's kind of in my history. One of my great uncles, I guess it was one of the country's best sculptors.
Hmm.
And on my mother's side, Putnam. And then my uncle was an artist. My dad was kind of a frustrated artist. And yeah, and I just got a lot of encouragement from my teachers and parents. You know, I hear these horror stories of people, you know, that the teachers came back and whacked them. If the student was drawing or doodling, they get whacked on the arm or told. But I got caught once doing it. I don't know, a history class, and the teacher was she said, "Oh, Ned, oh, that's very lovely, you know, but we're studying the War of 1812 now, and maybe you could just put that aside." So she was really kind and gentle. Another teacher, I was really insecure and just feared. It was an English class. We were supposed to give a speech, and I just got mortified of having to stand up and talk in front of kids. This was I was about 13 or so, and she said, "Well, Ned, you know, if you do my workbook for you, do drawings for my workbook, you know, I'll give you a good grade."
Hmm.
Did the drawings and everything, didn't have to give a speech, and I think I got an A- or B+.
That's nice. That's great. How,
Yeah.
how old were you when you had your first job as an artist?
Oh God, the only thing that I can remember was raised in Bozeman, Montana, and a guy was building kind of restoring a ghost town,
Hmm.
collecting old buildings and stuff and putting it, you know, out the edge of town and I don't know, call it, but he was a promoter of that. And somehow we connected, and he knew that I could draw, and he asked me if I would do drawings of these buildings so he could display it in front of for, you know, maybe some investors or something like that. So I did. We did a bunch of drawing. I can't remember, and I don't remember what happened. I think I probably didn't even get paid for them. So like that. That was kind of my first job, other than real jobs. Gosh. Oh gosh. Well, I guess when I went to art school, and I was lucky, it was one of the very best schools, not in the country, but in the world.
Oh, which school?
Art Center School of Design in Los
Mhm.
Angeles.
Okay.
And everybody wants to get in there, but it was really tough to get in. And my dad told me, if you wanted to go to art school, you should go to the very best, because that's who you're competing against when you get
Mhm.
out. So that was good advice. So we drove down to LA. We were in San Francisco area and interviewed. I just had this grubby little portfolio with some drawings and paintings, and somehow they liked him, and we were poor, didn't have much money. And on top of that, they saw, I guess, that I had a fairly decent attitude, or
Hmm.
really loved it.
Mhm.
I guess, you know, they can tell after so many years, after somebody's talked a few sentences, whether you know you're really into it or not.
Yeah.
And then they said, yeah, and after 3 semesters, you'd be eligible for a scholarship.
Oh, good.
So that was sort of good. And then, but my first job was they asked me to do some teaching with their high school students in the LA area,
Hmm.
because I could draw well. And that's why it's always been important that one of our teachers said, if you learn how to draw well, you'll never have trouble finding a job. And that was true,
Okay.
but I love drawing, and I took extra drawing classes, and it's just really served me well. I've been able to do architectural renderings. I was a courtroom artist. I was a concept artist for Disney. As an illustrator, trained as you have to be able to draw well, because you
Yeah.
never know whether your assignment's going to be painting teapots or the Civil War scene. So you really had those skills. And the other thing is I was a cartoonist. I love doing cartoons. I did my friends up. I put on the cover of Life magazine and Sports Illustrated, and that was a big deal, because you think back then, in school, say 100 students, maybe two or three of them, are artists or like art, two or three are musicians.
Okay.
So we are kind of a small group, and even when I was first class at Art Center school was an introduction, and there was about 120 of us, and the instructor got up and says, listen, there's going to be about 10% of you left at graduation.
Oh,
We're all looking at each other. Oh,
not good
he
odds.
was right. And I've heard this story before. There was 10 of us left at graduation.
And is that because it was so challenging, or because few would have the gumption to stick it out?
Yeah, and I was on scholarship, and I loved it. I couldn't believe here I am at Art Center, and with kids from all over the world.
Mhm.
They not only had illustration, they had fine art, they had architectural design. Detroit send their designers out to Art Center to study, and had fashion design and photography.
Wow.
So it was really something, really a great atmosphere
Yeah.
to be around those people every day. And they had high standards. I mean, if you didn't reach their standard, they asked you to leave.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And they asked my best friend after 6 semesters, and he was paying, and they even, I can't remember the reason why, but he wanted to coach football anyway. So they kind of did him a favor, but it was tough to get into and even tougher to get out of, but it was inspirational. And, I just, I had to work nights and weekends, and they loaded work on it. Actually, as a scholarship, you had to you're supposed to set an example for everybody. But
Oh, sure.
in the 6th semester, I didn't hand in one assignment.
Oh, dear.
I had hit a wall. I mean, as a scholar, you had to go straight through, no breaks except for Christmas. And I was just burned out. I never experienced that. There was nothing in the tank.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of like the New Zealand Prime Minister just resigned today. He said, I'm burned out. There's nothing left. And then I thought, they called me into the office, before the next semester. I thought, oh, Jesus, this is it. I'm gonna get kicked out. And they said, no, this had happened to even older students,
Okay.
because they just pile on the work. And they said, yeah, just get back there, just try to get your assignments done, which I did. I had gotten a little bit of rest. And that was interesting, to say the least.
How do you be creative when you're burnt out? Is that even possible? That
You shouldn't even try.
Yeah.
People say, well, you got to do it every day. And I kind of do it now more so than even before. But then, yeah. And it is, it gets to be, it can be grind, but and I was younger and I could do it, and I was driven. I just, not in a healthy way. I was driven. There were, from the culture I came from, and other things influencing me home, there wasn't any option to fail.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
You just weren't allowed, that generation.
Yeah.
And that wasn't healthy.
Right.
And
What did that look like for you?
yeah, I didn't take a vacation for 15, 20 years.
Oh, wow. Oh, dear.
That's, and I was a pleaser. I wanted to,
Mhm.
got an assignment. I did my best to please the art director or whatever.
Mhm.
If an art show coming up, I, wanted to get the best painting in there, and disappointed if I didn't get an award.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
was
very competitive and a people pleaser.
yeah, very unrealistic. I mean, you're competing with some really great artists and you think you're getting an award every time. No, the reality, no, no, no.
Yeah, yeah.
So I've kind of, my old age, I've gotten a little more common sense. Before
Well,
I'm kind of going on here, but I was trying to be this best artist. I had to be this best artist. So I was doing watercolor, pastel, oils, acrylics, and gouache.
wow.
I thought if you're a great artist, you got to do everything.
Right. And how are you now after 60 years? Are you able to paint what you want and not worried about doing the best, getting the awards? Yeah.
Yeah. That's, I think I've grown up, and my health issues forced me
Sure.
into it. Chronic pain. I got a rare autoimmune disease.
Mhm.
And this 2022 I was in and out of the hospital probably 30 times.
Oh, man.
But
Yeah.
the last month I've been feeling pretty good and getting some decent work done
Oh, good.
in the studio. And that's encouraging. And the love of my life, my wife Karen, it's really made a difference. And
Yeah.
she's kept me alive and inspired. And
Hi, Karen. We all appreciate you. I know you're hiding back there.
yeah, everybody appreciates it because she's mellowed me out. Says, thank God you calmed him down.
Oh, it's fantastic. Ned, I don't always hear such great stories about art school like you've just shared. So I'm really glad to hear that it was an inspirational, hard, challenging, obviously, but beneficial experience to you. As you came out of art school, you've put all these years in, you've been trained as best as you can. What happened next? Because I know for today's artists, it's often a quick like, oh, what do I do now? And they can't find work. What was your experience like?
One of the bigger disasters of my life.
Oh dear.
Getting out of school, and then that was 63. And they still had the draft. Once you got out of school, you had to go in the service. And the service then was kind of a joke. It was 4 years, you go dig a ditch and you fill it up again. It isn't the way it is now, particularly for artists going, there's nothing in the service for artists to do. It's paint bathroom signs or stuff like that, or stay off the grass. And so anyways, I had to go in the service. My friends where everybody was scrambling to get in the reserves, which is 6 months, and then you go in every couple weeks every summer. So anyways, long story short, I ended up going to Marine Corps Reserves, the only thing left. And so I was, kind of glad. I was pretty athletic, played a lot of sports. When I went in, I was in pretty good shape. even in art school, we were playing football and basketball and keep our sanity. And anyways, I was doing well after about 2.5 months. I got pneumonia. The DI ran us at night. It was colder than hell. This in San Diego. And half the platoon came down sick and I got pneumonia. Anyways, I was in the hospital for 5 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't know you could die from pneumonia. You know, they put me on the critical ward and 2 guys died next to me.
Oh, geez.
So anyways, that and just the atmosphere, all of a sudden I couldn't sleep. I just could not sleep. And so I went to the chaplain and asked him, I'll just go back and you'll be fine. And I went back and it got worse. Anyways, to make a long story short, I had a breakdown and ended up getting a medical discharge, you know, went home, had to go admit myself to a hospital.
Wow.
Mental hospital. Literally, I was a vegetable.
Wow.
I was, I won't go into the story, the experience of the hospital. It was horrible. I'd go out and walk around the grounds and people were laying in the ditches and I mean, geez, I thought I'm going to be here the rest of my, anyways, I got better, you know, dealing with, had a lot of repressed anger and all sorts of stuff. It's the worst thing that ever happened to me, but the best thing, I realized I had some issues and I had to do something about them.
Okay.
So anyways, yeah, I went from, just crashed and got started. I got started working as a carpenter, as a laborer, you know, got to working. And the other thing is still out of art school, I wanted to make a career. But I had lost all my confidence. What I did is I started going to drawing sessions at night. I kept my drawing up and got around other artists. And I started going into San Francisco for freelance work, got some assignments and stuff like that, got back on my feet. And, you know, one thing led to another. And you know, so I started doing freelance. I went back to New York and got some assignments. Oh gosh, so that, you know, and then I was an illustrator for 25 years, which was really good training, you know, for a fine artist.
Yeah. Was that with Disney or was Disney after that?
Was it what?
Was that with Disney?
No, Disney actually came later. I mean,
Okay.
you know, gosh, that was got around 2000. You know, I had been, you know, I was working as an illustrator here in Seattle and doing fine art and stuff at night. And I was starting to show in the Western shows. And anyways, I was going through a divorce and I was in debt. And, you know, I was going to make sure it was my fault I got in debt. And I was going to make sure I got out of it.
Right.
But luckily and I was looking for work and, you know, interviewing, and people were telling me I was overqualified for this. I couldn't do that. And so a friend of mine who was one of Disney's top artists said that, boy, they could really use you down there.
Oh, okay.
And I said, really? And so, so like a friend said, I was swimming so hard, I was sinking, you know.
Yeah.
And another new experience. So anyways, I went down there, they said, yeah, we could sure use you. And even DreamWorks, I could have started with DreamWorks.
Cool.
But I would have had to move to LA and work. Disney said, we'll fly you back and forth.
Oh, wow.
They gave me these great assignments. It was with Walt Disney Imagineering. They do the theme parks.
Okay.
And I could draw well. I had a great eye for perspective. So I would paint total pictures of what a park would look like ahead of time.
Oh,
They
that's
gave
neat.
you, all this stuff they imagine. They call it Imagineering, and I put it together. It's almost like I designed the park.
Wow, that's great.
I did a big things with Animal Kingdom, did a
Oh,
lot of stuff with them, California Park, and
wow.
they even sent a guy up here to the studio. They had a secret assignment. They're going to build a park in China.
Oh, my.
I forget where it was, maybe Hong Kong. And they weren't supposed to be working with Disney because Disney made that, 7 years in Tibet that made China look bad.
Right, yeah.
They said, we'll never use Disney again. So this was a top secret. So he
Oh.
came up here and he wanted this view of the park at night,
Oh,
how this park would look at night. It was kind of like on an island.
yeah.
So he was up here, kind of told me what to do. And then for about 2 or 3 days, I put this thing together. And he left, and it turned out pretty nice. And but they never used it. It never came about.
Oh, no way.
Anyways, it was a good job. I mean, they paid me a lot of money. I literally went from a pauper to a prince overnight.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and I didn't know it. They had me teaching their animators and
Hmm.
other artists. They gave me their best assignments, and it was, yeah, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, but yeah, and there's things like that out there. I
Yeah.
had no idea, how
Well,
not Disney, hires different artists. They had sculptures from Hungary, especially. They had architects. They had
mm,
there's jobs like that all over. I didn't have a clue when I got to art school,
mm.
and I wouldn't pay attention because I was going to start at the top. you know, there I was. I went to this great art school, and I'm going to be at the top. No, no.
Mm. Everyone starts at the bottom. So did you have people in your life that were helping to make connections for you, like having a network of people supporting you? Did you have a mentor? Were there any special people that helped you along the way?
Yeah, I took workshops when I got into fine arts. I knew because the illustrator had a kind of a commercial look, and so I took workshops from some of my idols like Richard Schmid,
Mm,
one of the greatest artists in the U.S. I mean, considered arguably. And I went painting with Clyde Aspavig and, oh gosh, a few other people. I took from a Canadian artist, Harley Brown. I took portrait work from,
okay.
but I searched out what I thought was the best and took workshops from them.
Hmm.
Oh, I you know and didn't realize what I needed to do if I wanted to become a good fine artist. What it took, and boy, you don't know. And then I got invited to some other shows. I kept working. We started an art league down here. We had models every day.
Mm,
And so I was doing that. I was a president of that, and kind of went sideways in my career because I was going up there and doing models morning, noon, at night. But boy, it really strengthened my work,
yeah.
made big leaps, and started getting invited to some of the better shows, and being in those shows with these top artists that were my heroes, and
Yeah.
finding out, what it took, to do that.
Mhm.
It's not for everybody. I just, there again, there's, you don't have to be the best. We just have to do our
Hmm.
best. Things usually work out, and,
Yeah.
I was always thinking of that as goals instead of not thinking so much of what I should be doing for myself.
I just want to repeat what you said there. It's not about being the best, it's about doing your best.
Yeah, yeah. It took me about 70 years to figure that out. But better late than never, huh?
That's right. Everyone write it down. Words from the master. Yeah, that's right. Good advice, though.
But yeah, and then you guys have a program that's, for people that, because the system now is just, it's gotten so only rich people can afford to go to art school.
Mm.
I got a scholarship I don't think I could have, for even though it was $400 a semester. Now it's like 40,000.
Oh, wow.
And I look back now, and most of the kids, I look back that were at Art Center that driving really fancy cars and had a little bit of money. I mean, it's tough, to be able to go to a good school, get good training. I mean, we started with kids that majored in art in all the major universities, Stanford, Michigan, California, and they started Art Center. They all had to start over again because they didn't teach them anything. They didn't tell them, well, you got to develop some skills. You got to sit down here and learn how to draw and learn about color and learn about studies. But they didn't get any of that, and they couldn't find work. And so they found Art Center, and that was an eye-opener. I don't think it's changed much.
Yeah.
But Mastrius is kind of filling a gap in for those that, for whatever reason, couldn't go to an art school, couldn't afford it, had other things in their life to do. And I think things like that, programs like that people can afford are really good.
Yeah, we're kind of skipping the long, arduous art school experience at Mastrius here, which is wonderful for sure. Mentorship. Did you have a mentor? I mean, you worked with artists that were your heroes over the years. Who would you say influenced your work most of all?
Oh God, there's a whole bunch.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch. I think it's a mistake just to maybe fall in love with one people, because then you have a tendency maybe to paint like them.
Right.
You really, and that it's not easy to find your own voice. It takes courage to be different.
Yeah.
And I'm just now doing things just for myself and really kind of doing what I love and how I love to do it, for better or for worse. But the other thing there, I'm able to afford to do it.
Yeah. Tell us a bit about what you're doing that's different and is for yourself.
Oh, I'm just following my intuition and instincts more, of what I do. And I'm doing a variety of things. Because I was sick for so long, I was just doing a lot of drawing again to get my feet back and get a touch. And it takes a while, if you get away from it, whatever, to get good at anything, you got to do a lot of it. So I was doing more portrait drawings because I just loved it, and teaching that, and then doing more figure work. Now I'm, got a little bit of confidence back for that, so I'm doing more landscapes because they're more forgiving than doing figures. I love to do figures, but I've been a little rusty, so I haven't been happy with some of those, and so I'm starting to do that. And I just did a lot of value color study, just a lot of study work, just to get back in the groove, so to speak. And it's hard. You really, if you can do it day after day, if anybody can say do it every day for a month, whatever, they're going to get pretty damn good if they're doing it. you know, and then in art school, you're doing it every day for 4 years,
Yeah.
you know, and that's kind of the commitment I found you have to do. You just find that time if you can, and that's not easy. You have a family, you're paying bills, and so, but yeah, and I was in that bag, you know, struggling when I was even out of art school, and
Mhm.
but I kept at it by keeping involved, you know, with drawing sessions at night, and doing paintings on my own. And there wasn't, I didn't even know what plein air was then.
Yeah.
But even doing plein air, I was one of the members of the Plein Air Painters of America, the group that started all that.
Wow.
We were the first ones to have a show, put a group together in Catalina.
No way.
And then we started going around the country teaching. And soon every town in the States were having plein air shows because people loved them.
Yeah.
But then I could do a lot of them. I was doing, you know, in a summer, maybe 5 or 6 of them,
Oh, wow.
and doing them a lot. And so I was getting good because I was doing them a lot
Yeah. Yeah.
and painting with some of the best people in the country, and, you know, finding out how they're thinking, what they're doing. And,
Mhm.
but yeah, and you know, with COVID, Karen and I just got out 2 or 3 times to paint,
Mhm.
teaching a workshop in Montana in the summer. And so I did a plein air show around here, and I was really rusty. And boy, I just didn't do anything I was happy with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Embarrassing. So you have it's if you can, you know, just do as much as you can.
Absolutely.
Whatever you love to do,
Mm.
you know, you do what you love, because if you're not enjoying it, it's going to show in your work.
Mhm. And Ned, what is one of your looking back over your career? What's one of your biggest, brightest highlights of your career that you're most
And I got married to Karen.
proud
Did I say the right thing? Brightest highlight, I guess I got American Impressionist Society goes around, has their annual shows at different galleries around the country. And they had it out here at a gallery in the suburb of Seattle here. And I got best to show or something like that. And it was really a good judge. And I was kind of surprised. And they also made me a master member, which was pretty high accomplishment with that group, you know, and also like Oil Painters of America. And that was nice because I think there was maybe 15 members, and they all voted for me. And I think the reason, and also not that I was just a plein air artist, but I got in that group mainly because they said because I could do a lot of different things.
Mm.
And they respected that. But there again, the reason and anybody I think like me can do that is because I could draw well.
Mm.
That forgives a lot of sins. I could do gouache, I could do pastel, because I could draw well, and that I could do pretty darn good work.
Mm.
So I got pretty good at everything, but you know, but there again, you're doing, somebody just do landscapes every day,
Right.
or just plein air, they're really getting good.
Yeah.
Or figures. But that's the way I am. I just love doing a lot of different things.
Yeah. And did that, did it hurt your career to be so diverse instead of kind of honing in on one thing, or do you?
I put it this way, it didn't hurt my career. I think I look back, it's been enriching. I put it this way, I probably could have made more money if I just concentrated.
Right.
And that's not a bad idea. I know people agonizing over that. Let's see, when I graduated, from high school or college, you went to get a good job or, to get in a gallery or something, you were competing maybe against 5 people. Now you go out like that, you're competing against 50 or 100 people.
Yeah.
So it's a different ball game, but if you can find that, your muse or what you love, whatever it is, and tempted to do other things, I don't know, and it's a different ball game now. It seemed like it's more promotion,
Mm.
improving, and that's not a good situation.
Yeah, I imagine the art industry has changed drastically over the decades. How have you been able to adjust to those changes? How is that going?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I still promote Instagram and Facebook and this other Musero they started on FASO I belong to, and so I do a lot of that, and thank God, Karen does a lot of the technical stuff for me. I just get, I get to the point I want to, kick the computer. So yeah, and I still do it. I still enter shows. I'm not, because of my health issues, I can't make big paintings because the movement
Mm.
affects my back and I get a lot of pain. So larger painting, maybe 16 by 20, which I don't care. I'm, happy I'm doing, smaller paintings. But yeah, it's changed. It's hard to change. It's hard to say for me because I've got these health issues.
Mm.
And if I didn't have them, I'd probably still be doing more shows and more galleries. But fortunately, I've accomplished a lot. I've kind of sort of proven myself. So I'm in a position now, I'm painting just pretty much what I want. The subject matter is what I want
Mm-hmm.
and enjoy. But I've financially, and I got to go to VA healthcare, and I get so I'm, kind of like some of those rich students. I can pay my bills. And I don't need much anymore.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. You've
I don't know
earned
if that
that.
answered your question, but yeah, it's different. I'm probably not the best person for advice of getting started nowadays.
Right.
I think it's hard. It's just really hard with the system. And, I think, yeah, I made a lot of mistakes, and start just like everybody. I think one of the problems now is that too many galleries have too many artists.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
They have 50, 60 artists, and, you're competing against, once your stuff leaves your studio, it's out of your hands.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you are competing because you're competing for all that money in that gallery.
Right.
And it does get competitive whether you like it or not. And the ideal galleries, the best galleries are those that have like 15, 20 artists. They're doing it right. They don't get other artists that paint like somebody else or painting the same subject. And so they're protecting their artists. How many galleries out there are like that?
Right.
You can probably count them in both fingers or both hands.
Yeah, and so many galleries are online as well. We do have a whole bunch of paintings to share and to show off. When do you want to do that, Ned?
Oh, sure. Have you got some there, or
Yes, I do.
you better have some good ones? Because
Whatever.
I never did a bad painting, so
No, I know. Hopefully I screen share them adequately.
you could see them. There's stacks of them behind me.
Yeah, I know. I love your studio. Okay, let's see. I just want to get the display right. Let's look through some of your paintings. And all right, can you see this one?
Yeah, great. Yeah, that's one of my favorites. But I did that probably 35 years ago.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, and yeah, it's a scene from Portugal. I traveled a lot. I love to travel. Thank God I did it when I did it. You know, you know, maybe that's some good advice. If you can, if you ever want to go to France, don't wait till later in life. Do it when you can, because
Mm.
things can happen, go wrong if you can. You know, this was I did Western art, I did wildlife. This was a gouache, you know, so yeah, so you can see I did a lot of variety, and I had some galleries told me I was unmarketable because I did too many different things. And God, you think that would be admirable. You think that's great that an artist can do all that. No. Discouraging. I can't hear you. Whoops. Is it on our side?
No, it's us.
Oh,
Mike
okay.
is, I think it was fine.
No, you weren't showing the whole screen.
Okay. Yeah, so unmarketable because you do too much. Well, I know in my experience that I was very quickly kind of pigeonholed and told just paint prairie landscapes over and over and over again. And I was aware it was happening at least, but you resisted that urge, I guess, or
Yeah, I did, but I did. If I was going to be an artist, I would at least, and as a commercial artist, but there again, I could do these things mainly because I was able to draw well. You know,
right.
there's drawing is just sharpening. You don't have to draw the figure to draw. If you draw a lot of trees or fire hydrant, all you're doing is sharpening your eye, which sharpens your judgment, which makes your taste and quality of your art better. And to my landscape painters, oh, Ned, and these are some of the best landscape painters in the country. Say, oh, Ned, I'm not a true artist, I'm just do landscape. I said, that's baloney. That's all you want to do. You don't want to do figures, so cut it out. So I just happen to like to do a challenge of doing different things, and I did them in different mediums.
That screen, by the way.
We're having technical difficulties here.
What would you like to share?
It wasn't switching when I.
Wasn't? Okay, what we're gonna do is we'll put it on.
Sorry, Ned.
That's okay.
All
Listen,
right,
we're used to things working this stuff ourselves. I think that's another gouache. I went to Guatemala. I've been going to Mexico for 30 years and was told Guatemala is like Mexico was 100 years ago. And it was because I loved the old costumes and the way of life, that's not the modern world. And I just loved that kind of stuff. So I traveled and, took a lot of pictures, did paintings at home. This was Guatemala flower market. But yeah, I love doing it, and I think it shows, And then this was a portrait pastel, one of our favorite models, and love pastels, very similar to oils. And gonna start doing some more. I haven't done any for a few years. This was an oil pastel of, it was an old girlfriend's mom who was Ukrainian.
Mm.
And I actually painted her in the summer. This was actually plein air, painted in the summer, but she had this scarf on it, and it looked like more winter scene. So I just made a winter scene up behind it.
Oh, I see.
So, and this was a plein air painting. I give a workshop here in the Beartooth Mountains every June, which is a beautiful area to go, and just a big variety of stuff. And this is one of my, this was a plein air, and I tended to finish them up more and touch them up later. When I was first doing it, just to justify being out painting in time, I was married and had a family, and I needed to finish them up to sell them. So the plein air experience was more to learn about color and that. So I kind of killed that reason. And I picked that up, got back on the train on that later. And this was a oil painting. It was a model that I had in a workshop down in Scottsdale.
Mm.
So I changed it to an outdoor scene and, added some things and talk a lot about this kind of stuff in my emergent thing and my regular class at Mastrius. This was up near you guys, the Glacier Park.
Up by Jasper?
Pardon?
By Jasper, is that right?
No, Glacier Park in the, ever hear of the United States?
I thought you meant up in Canada.
And it's at Waterton in your part.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And this is Glacier Park down here in what they call the States. And this was kind of a not a life changer, but I was always going out plein air looking for something that would paint itself, great scene, drive around for hours, walk around. And finally I was out painting and walked over to the river to see if there was anything. And I just saw this scene and I just took pictures of it. I didn't paint it, but when I got back, because I was just beginning to see in shapes and colors instead of subject matter.
Okay, yeah.
And so I saw a painting here.
Mm.
Once you start seeing in shapes, in colors, instead of objects, I think in my case, it students that you start thinking like an artist.
Yeah.
And that takes people to get hung up on detail and there's more important things. This was a little different for me. It's Seattle street scene and so yeah, kind of one that I just did for myself, and I just done it and sold it right away.
Yeah.
Just from Glacier Park again at the studio painting. I'd done field studies there and then kind of combined them to do this one. And it's always been one of my favorites because it's a little different, it's a little different and unique for me. I'm looking for things like this, looking for paintings where I never looked before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, then the drawing stuff is for later, I think, right?
Yeah.
All right. So you mentioned mistakes before that you've made over your journey. What are a couple mistakes that you've made?
Oh, gosh, I remember one. I was in one of the best galleries at Western galleries in the States. I was doing Western, a Trailside gallery.
Mhm.
And I was just thrilled to be in there. She asked me to be in there. She was at this big, the National Academy of Western Art show. And, but just being in that show, you had to reach a certain standard. And so, yeah, and those good gallery owners, you don't see it. My good gallery owner, you would see them at the shows.
Oh, yeah.
They'd go to the shows looking for art, see what was going on, and don't see much of that, and I keep wondering why. And I suppose some of them still do. But anyways, so I'd been there a few years, and I got in a bind in an invitational show. And so I had some paintings in her gallery that I thought would be good in the show. And she wasn't there. I called up and talked to one of her assistants and asked if they could send, 3 of the paintings back. So, and she got wind of it and kicked me out of the gallery.
Oh, no.
For doing that, so that was, we're still friends, and I could show some things in her gallery now, that's long ago, but, wasn't, I know other artists do that stuff, but it's probably not, at least I should have, told her about it, she probably, so that was one mistake that I can think of. I'm
Yeah.
sure I could.
We could, we won't dive into all the mistakes.
What else? I guess for the bigger thing is I used to be really judgmental of other people's work and stuff, and just way too judgmental. And ran into a situation with a friend and I embarrassed them somehow, and what the heck's going on? And I just thought, this, so I tended to be just too opinionated. It's good to have opinions, but there's times just to keep them to ourselves. Dad used to tell me, you just talk too much, Ned, you say too much. I still do it, but there's a time and a place for everything. And I think I've gotten better. Ask Karen, she probably.
I don't find you judgmental at all. I find you very encouraging. So,
that's good.
yeah.
And a bad example anyways.
Well, when you're an expert at something, I think it's an easy trap to fall into, to be judgmental. So don't be too hard on yourself.
All right.
We are at the hour, so we can dive into the second part, the presentation you have on the art of seeing. Are you ready for that?
Yeah. Can we switch over to, anybody asking questions?
There's been lots of comments coming in about your story and such. Lots of comments. Are you going to do the screen sharing for the next presentation?
Yeah, I'm going to kind of show them. I don't want to, I probably try to cover too much. That's another problem. I try to do not so much because of just, but I was always trying to do too much. Anyways, what in my class that I'm having, it's because the kind of the art of seeing, and I'm finding out that students and even myself, what the heck, design is really important.
Yeah.
And I've found out, I think it's pretty true, that the better you can draw, and I'm not saying the figure, the better you can draw, and that means drawing whatever you're drawing, you're doing a lot, and your judgment's getting better. You're making something not so wobbly, or you're making something smoother or easier, or you're getting better spacing, your judgment's getting better.
Yeah.
If haven't done any figures and you've been painting mountains, trees, water, grass, you're drawing, because there's an old saying, when you draw, you paint, and when you paint, you draw. And
Right.
when you're drawing, you're painting a shape, and the shape has to be maybe a particular shape, particularly if you're doing figures, or a particular shape you're doing a mountain, whatever your style is. And then when you're painting, you're drawing, because that shape you're painting, if it's way kiltered and distorted, it doesn't look right.
Right.
So that's kind of one way to look at it. But yeah, if you just doing other you go back after 10 years, your judgment's gotten better. You could probably do a pretty good figure, maybe even a pretty good horse, because your ability to draw the shapes and proportions has improved. So that's a good way to look at things.
All right. So we have the principles of design and the elements of design. Are those all going to be covered in your course?
Yes.
Okay.
And, I mean, it's overwhelming looking at it.
Yeah.
We covered the main thing. If you had the last two, 11 and 12 down there, large, medium, and small shapes, variety in most things.
Okay.
Variety in color, shapes, spacing, sizes.
Yeah.
And the orchestra, and a lot of this is also determined on your style and technique.
Okay.
Which is how I think this all comes out. And we can't teach that. You can't really teach art. Sounds odd, but that comes from us or the student. And we can sort of give them some idea how to bring it out, maybe some exercises, but the art part really you need to be stubborn about that, what you want to do and how you want to do it.
That's awesome.
But if you apply these principles, if you apply these to your work, it'll make your work better.
A great question just popped up. All of these elements in one painting?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Same with the principles. Not necessarily. Say you're a tonalist. Color wouldn't be as critical.
Right.
As a beginner, you're probably not working much with texture. Maybe you shouldn't be worried about that. You should be worrying about getting the right color, or the right value, instead of worrying about texture. If you're a hard edge painter, designer, lost and found edges probably wouldn't apply.
Right.
So, it doesn't apply to everybody, but generally speaking, if, we need to at least be aware of this stuff. And I find in my paintings, if there's something wrong, I always got to think, what is it? The shape wrong, the value wrong, color? We've only got so much we can do to correct the painting when it comes down to it. We can make something larger or smaller, brighter, duller, larger, smaller, brighter, duller, darker, lighter, or sharper, softer edge. There's not much else we can do as far as making changes.
Okay.
Whatever we're doing, kind of simplifying it. Okay. Okay. So anyways, or you could take a screenshot, and this, for people that are going to do drawings or value studies, this, just some tools of, let me get the cursor up here. Okay, so this is Bistray Conti, comes in a little, if you can see the red thing like that. That's good for doing value studies. You can do them quickly. It's dark, rich brown. Particularly if you're doing figures, it's user-friendly rather than charcoal. This is a compressed charcoal stick, 2B. But either one, I take a mat knife over here, take a stick, and I file it down with a mat knife to, get that glaze off of it, and then take a sandpaper pad or paper and smooth it off. So you have a point. And use that. The other thing is white chalk, maybe for highlights.
Yep.
Kneaded eraser for all the mistakes we make. And a smooth newsprint, which works best for the Conti and that 2B compressed charcoal. It comes, unfortunately, usually comes in packages like this with 4 or 5 sticks from 2B to 8B, and the 8, 6, 4 are really soft and messy. But there again, this is what I use. It works for me. You may not be comfortable with it, but this is kind of what I recommend.
Can you paint over Conti?
Never have.
Okay.
Yeah, never have. Probably not unless you spray it a lot.
Mm.
And so I do, and talking about doing drawing and doing, these are all little value studies, with the Bistray, or the brown ones, the charcoal, the darker ones. But I've done thousands of these.
Wow. Yeah.
And it's all that it is to sit down, may need to get a design, to sit down and get your thoughts and ideas down on paper at small, simple level, and trying to do it cold turkey. I'm convinced most paintings are ruined at the start, or most, because we haven't done studies like this. We haven't done preliminary thought.
Yeah. Is this the size that you start your planning at, or do you do thumbnail sketches?
Oh, yeah, sometimes. Usually if I'm plein air, I'll do smaller ones, thumbnails. But yeah, and these look a little larger, maybe average one is 6 by 8, 8 by 10. The one in the lower right was a little larger. I don't know why. And I'll do 15 or 20 in a sitting. And then what I'll do I'll pick the best 8 or 10 and do maybe a color study, and then maybe the best 3 or 4 and do painting. It just at my age, you want to cut down the clunkers. And that's a good way to eliminate them. These are done. Nobody even has to see these. I mean, you're just getting arrangements of values down. And then you can do color study if you want. And this is a value study I made from these photos. Combine these 3 photos. I used them in black and white. I have colors. But to do the value study, the color gets distracting. So you want to think of the design part, which is arrangements of darks, lights, and midtones.
I love that you took 3 photos and pulled what you liked and created your own composition. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and I've done so many figures, I can make up figures pretty good and to a point. But I just, and I'm taking this and I'm using this stuff for reference.
Yeah.
I left the cowboy out, I
Yeah.
used the middle one. I had her standing up. I left half the pots out, moved this one figure in the background. And the idea is to get a pleasing, interesting story or design down. And the other thing, I was trained that way. So it's a little, this was one example of where going up to hospital so much, we drive by this residential area and always thought nice older homes in Seattle and, you know, landscaping and interesting shapes and colors, and thought, well, okay, yeah, I'm going to take some pictures this time. So this is one of the pictures I took. I liked it, you know, too much foreground, but I closed in on it, you know, blocked in the shapes using line, visualizing the shapes with line, and then start filling in some tones,
Mhm.
you know, from one stage to the next, you know, from the block in, getting some tones down and, you know, doing this and then kind of fine tuning it in this one.
Ned, I hear sometimes, I would almost say often, from our mentors that value is one of the most important compositional tools. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, you know, the old saying is value does all the work, color gets the credit.
Ah, right.
Yeah, so that, you know, think of it that way. I mean, there's all exceptions to the rule.
Yeah.
And all these rules we're talking about, all this stuff, you know, the rules can be broken. But you got to really, I think there's, my experience, there's 3 stages of becoming an artist. The first stage is you're drawing or painting what you know. You know the sky is blue, you know the grass is green. You know, all shadows got to be cool because you go in the shade to cool off. Well, no, it's, you know, sometimes you get them to paint what they see, that the sky can sometimes be orange.
Yeah.
Grass could be blue
Mm.
or brown,
Yeah.
you know, and both shadows are warm.
Mm.
And they're cool in the early morning and as the sun goes down, but midday they tend to be warm and the cool light.
Mhm.
And that's where people make a lot of mistakes. They think light, they think warm. And most light is fairly cool. Even here, you think, well, that's a warm light hitting that house there. But you analyze and compare it to this yellow here.
Right.
Then you see, oh, yeah, that's cool. Temperature-wise, we're talking.
Mhm.
That's a cool light
Yeah.
yellow.
Mm.
And look at the grass. Yeah, sure, that looks kind of warm, but no, it's cool. Compare it to something, other grass that's warmer,
Mhm.
you know, over here. Compare it to the green on the roof. Foolish, grayish.
Yeah.
And I talk to myself about how the color, I say it's a cool grayish green. Doesn't say how cool, how green, or how gray, but I have that in my mind.
Mhm.
And then, of course, mixing it, what you get on your palette and what you get on your canvas is 2 different things.
Mm.
But it's going to change with the colors it's next to.
That's right.
So it's kind of what I teach too. It's an impressionistic kind of thinking. It's the hardest kind of way to learn color, but it's the most rewarding.
Mm.
But thinking of color temperature and intensity and all that. But you got to get your canvas covered to see if the colors are working all together. And they need to work all together, not just one little section. I mean, yeah, there again, obviously there's exceptions to the rule. Okay, let's see what, okay, I wanted to talk about that. Here's a good example of using a photograph, and a pretty good photograph.
Oh, yeah.
nice variety of shapes and some texture. And you can see turning it in black and white, it's, don't get distracted from the color when you're doing value studies.
It's beautiful.
And you can see, even though, this isn't a bright yellow in those grasses, but I'm kind of getting away from the values. Anyways, how those yellows and yellow orangey greens are pretty dull in a black and white.
Right.
And anyways, what I'm talking about design wise is applying those principles of, spacing, spacing between these trees, like here, short, medium, long,
Right.
the different spacing. Yeah, Mike. Okay. Have to probably been on Zoom too long. Anyways, spacing and sizes, this is up, it goes down,
Mhm.
goes up, down, then up. Same here. See a little variety.
Is that part of rhythm? I saw you had rhythm.
Well, rhythm would be more back here, the rhythm movement of that hill.
Oh, okay.
So you may first get, say, this movement, you're blocking it in.
Mhm.
Then you would maybe go like that. And then if that's too dull, then you just come over it a little bit, go in a little bit. But the main thing, you do not want to lose that rhythm and movement of hills
Mhm.
and even mountains.
Mhm.
There's movement and rhythm, in that hill and how the rocks are moving along with, with the hill.
Yeah.
And trees are going up, they're strong and they go up. So they're strong, particularly in this case.
Yeah.
So there's variety of spacing, have some quiet areas, have some busy areas, other quiet areas. So a mixture of all of that. And, and you have a good example in your painting. You have a lot of rhythm and movement.
Yeah, I hadn't called it rhythm before, so I like that though. It's like it's dancing. There's movement.
Yeah, one other thing I think maybe I could get more of a white space. Let me clear this. Oops, gotta hit the red X. Okay, so like with a figure or an arm, say, and I hate to have to do that every time. Okay, so that you have a arm coming out at you like this,
Mhm.
and you have the wrist and finger stuff. Now, if you have clothing over that, see, now that's a solid shape. You fill it in. If you see it like a cylinder, it's pretty solid.
Mm.
The thing is, if you have clothing, you've got to go over the top of that, or even with muscles. If you cut in like that,
Yeah.
you're going to have a broken arm.
Right.
So think of that if you're doing things solid. If you want this to flow like that, remarkable how that hill flow. If you cut in too much into here, you're going to kill that nice flow of that cliff coming down there.
Mhm. Yeah.
So that's kind of dynamics, those cliffs, are rising up, and if you interrupt them too much, the same thing happens. But just look at that. I mean, it was a scene in Ireland, not too far from Karen's place. Look at the design of this thing already. Positive, negative shapes. I mean, you couldn't make it up much better. You don't often find it, but yeah. So, but after a while, you're looking for that stuff. When I take a photograph, I try to compose it like a painting as much as I can. Thinking of how it looks as a picture. I'll move around and take a variety of pictures. And this, I didn't have to do much on this one. I brought these rocks in closer here, and, I shortened that cliff back there.
Yeah.
So, but this is the advantage of doing these studies. Instead of, having a 24 by 30 all done and then discovering that, I stretched it out too much or what. And you can do these in 10, 15 minutes, and you can change them right away.
Yeah.
Need an eraser. Or the other way, which gets me into, if, these are nice doing them with charcoal or gunny, because you can do it right on paper right away.
Yeah.
Now, I also do, and I've done them in black and white value and sienna tone, which is, let me find it.
I can't say that I would have seen those details in that cliff's edge like you had. The Art of Seeing is aptly named that you saw that. And
yeah, your eye is going to be, 10 times of what it is, when you're my age, maybe more. I had a collector once that came up to me and told me, Ned, geez, I've got these paintings I bought 10 years ago. I paid, $35,000, $40,000 each for them.
Oh, wow.
I don't like them anymore.
Uh-oh.
And I told, well, that's good. That means your tastes have changed. Your tastes have improved. If you still like them after as much as you did 10 years ago, that means you probably haven't grown much.
Okay, yeah.
So we're still liking things, if I'm still, when I first started out, knowing nothing about it, I like most people, I thought the more detailed, the more it looked like a photograph, the better work of art it was. I couldn't understand how could it be a great work of art when you could see some of the canvas coming through.
Yeah.
That was, so I didn't know anything then. And so it is, it's just, and it never ends. It just, which is the nice part of it.
Well, and I hear it often that artists usually start trying to be realistic, right? They want to paint it so it looks like the thing they're painting. And then once they can do that, they spend the rest of their career trying to stop, trying to loosen up and be impressionistic and think shapes and color and value. Yeah.
And you hear that a lot, the teacher, I want to loosen up, I'm too tight. And I guess they hear all sorts of things, but I've found out I draw and paint from my shoulder. If you're drawing from your fingers or your wrist, you're going to draw pretty tight.
Oh, I see.
Plus, you're not able to see the whole drawing or the whole painting. If you're arm's length away and drawing from your arm, your shoulder. And then you can loosen up, and then you look at rhythm and movement. When I'm drawing a head I'll go like, whoops, that didn't work. I'll draw through like that. I'll draw through, so I don't stop the movement instead of trying to do it piece by piece by piece by piece by piece.
I have some of your portrait drawings and figurative drawings. Can I share a couple?
Sure. Yeah.
Stop share.
All right. Here we go. Can you see?
Yeah. Yeah. This was charcoal, compressed charcoal, maybe some vine, but, and I use 2 lights. The reason, I've done thousands of portraits. And whoops. Yeah, can we go back to the portrait?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, just quick. So what I'm not just trying to do a portrait, I'm trying to do a work of art. And interesting arrangements of values. With 2 lights, look at the interesting shapes I get. Values with a light coming from here and a light coming from here.
Yeah.
Otherwise, this would all be in shadow. It gets pretty boring after a while. And then how I can design the sweater. So I'm thinking of I'm just trying not to get, an exact likeness, although I did in this case. It was an Irish artist friend. And, and also thinking of the background and I'm trying to design this thing as best I can. Making things lighter, darker, not so much brighter, duller, or bigger, smaller shapes. Okay. This was a plein air thing I did on location in a plein air show in Ireland. And nobody else was doing drawings. This is a quick draw. The original quick draw, I was with a group that started that in Montana.
Oh, yeah.
Originally, it was 30 minutes. And it showed our drawing skills. We could only draw. And then it was literally to auction off to get enough money for gas to get home. And it was started down in Helena, Montana. Anyways, so I started doing these. Nobody else was doing drawings. I thought, well, that's a quick drawing, not painting. And I've done 3 or 4 of these and won a couple of best of shows and the 2nd place with the drawings because they're different. Nobody else is doing them.
Yeah. Oh, I love this.
Yeah, and this one, was the same. It was during a quick draw in Karen's hometown of Wexford. They have over 200 artists in their show from all over the world. It's quite a spectacle. You meet artists from Russia, China, Australia. What's that country? What north of us? What's it called? Canada?
It's bigger than your country.
It's Canada.
Canada. Yeah.
Anyways, this was an early drawing. This was actually graphite, and I just an expressive thing. I don't know. The moons must have come together, but and I did this probably 40 years ago, and it's still one of my favorite drawings.
Fantastic.
And I kind of encourage people not to use graphite because they tighten up. And this, when I go to life drawing and I'm bored with a model, I'll do a study of the hands or the mouth or the nose or the ear. So if you go into drawing sessions, you don't like the pose or anything, do a drawing of the hands or the feet, or if nothing else, I'll draw the person drawing next to me or across the room.
Mm.
So you don't have to sit there and be bored. And this was when I was doing cartooning.
I love it.
It's for a Christmas note thing. And I just made this up. You know?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
But there again, you can see how my drawing skills enabled me to do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and, you know, arrange where I put the darks and the lights. And it's not any different doing cartoons than it is a work of fine art. It just looks different.
Mhm.
And this is what I used, kind of a promotional drawing when I first started doing the Western art. That was, oh, gosh, many years ago, 1980. And this was, and there's an example, like in the model session, you know, I'd done a couple drawings, and this was an artist friend in Ireland that I drew across the room.
Mm.
You know, because artists take, you know, they have all this paraphernalia around you can use to help design, you know, coats and, you know, palettes and paper towels and all sorts of stuff that it can use to help the composition.
Mhm.
So, and this was a life drawing session. I just did a study of legs, you know, this is maybe a 10-minute pose. And I know that seems it, but, you know, after you've drawn thousands of these things, you know, you can, you know, if you've done that many, you could do something like this in 10 minutes. So again, it's just, this was from art school.
Mm.
We'd have models like this. My job as a scholarship is to go get the costume from Western Costume that gave all the costumes for the movies. We have a whole floor of chainmail, a whole floor of Indian costumes.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it was just a great job.
Mm.
And this, you give us assignments to limit us to what we could do. And
Yeah.
giving us limitations made us more creative.
Yeah.
Necessity is the mother of invention. And boy, is that true.
Mm.
You're forced to make something out of what you think is nothing.
Mm.
That was a good lesson. And this was a little, when I was, once in a while, I would just like to tighten up, and it went down the Fisherman's Terminal in Seattle, took a bunch of pictures and, you know, did some drawings. So it doesn't even look close to what I'm doing now.
So did you draw this in your studio looking at the photos?
What was the?
Did you draw this in your studio looking at the photos?
Yeah. And I combined them, you know, maybe used 4 or 5 photos.
Mm.
Yeah. And this is more of an expressive portrait. You know, just using, it's Conti, the Bistray Conti. You know, if you get particularly a portrait, or even if you get the shadow shape right, you get a likeness.
Right.
Same with a tree. If you get the shadow and light side looking like a pine tree or a cottonwood tree, if you get those that look like, you know, kind of a classic thing. I don't want a classic pine tree or cottonwood, but I think, you know, you got to think in shapes though.
Mm.
You can't, if you got to get away from thinking too much detail. I mean, that if you put detail on top of getting all these things, which are more important, then the detail even means more.
I think that's all of them.
That's okay. So I
That's
got
all of
to.
them. You have a few minutes. Yeah, we have 25 minutes still.
Oh, geez. Well, I think I got.
Do you want to go back to your PowerPoint, your slideshow?
Yeah. I think I can. Okay, I was talking about paints. This is using just 5 values, mixing black and white.
Hmm.
There's a photo on the left, first a block in, generally work from dark to light, large to small.
Okay. And that's an oil.
Yeah, that's an oil. And we pre-mix 5 values. The idea is that if you've got things that are similar values, like this, oh, geez. There. Yeah, if you got similar values like this one and this, they might be a little different, but you just make them the same.
Right.
Or this one is pretty close. So you're not getting what people get trouble, they see too much. See too many busy things, too many things, but to simplify things. And it's you're able to design better if you're simplifying, because then you can put in rocks where you want to put the rocks. You don't have to put in all these rocks. You can design the rocks yourself so they're more interesting variety. You can make up a palm tree here. It helps break up this big boring shape and also leads your eye up here and around like that. So we talk a lot about that stuff. And over here, another photo, pretty neat shapes. There's some things that are kind of awkward. Didn't have to change too much. I just added more trees in here to make that interesting, or dead trees or what. The shadows in the photos go a little dark. So I know by painting outside that, or even aesthetically, that shadow should be lighter anyways, because I don't want my eye in a dark there.
Yeah.
And also with knowing photos, the darks go too dark and the lights go too light. And the thing that helps working from photos is to have paint outside plein air.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can make a big difference. And painting outside can be very difficult and frustrating at first, but just dive in like everybody. And, they say about painting is, a good saying is you gotta be willing to make a fool out of yourself. And that's kind of true. But yeah, and other than people that know anything about art, other artists understand struggles that beginners, we were all beginners at one time. We can't forget all those bad paintings we did that only our mother liked. But here's an example of this. Was from a workshop I did down in Scottsdale, Arizona. And the other students were out painting out in front of the school. And the middle one is more of a sienna tonal thing.
Yeah.
Where I use titanium white, ivory black, cadmium orange, cad red, and transparent red oxide. So it's more user-friendly. As you can see, the black and white is a little cold and not so user-friendly as using a warm sienna tone. It's almost a tonalist painting.
Yeah. And
particularly for figures, it's user-friendly.
I love the changes you made from the photo, putting in the mountain scene and tidying up the foreground there.
Yeah, there were mountains. You can barely see them.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
See, this is just awkward. See how dark this is?
Yeah.
So I just made everything high keyed. See, and that's our job. That's the tough part, is to be able to see stuff like that.
Yeah.
say, I got to make that lighter. That's not working. But there again, we're kind of applying the principles and elements of design.
Mhm.
Quiet areas, busy areas, see with, you lighten that, then this shape becomes more interesting, even becomes, and the other thing about design, that's all a dark shape, same value.
Yeah.
And that's where most people try to paint this a value and this a value. But that's what his design is making these other shapes interesting. Not just, that she's got an apron on and her pants, but get them similar values. And just to break it up with her shirt, the light hidden her hat, a chair, maybe a light object there. But seeing those things, where to make them darker, so that's when you start thinking of design. You're not copying the photo back, said, oh yeah, I can make all that dark and that's kind of neat.
Mhm.
And even then go in and say, okay, I want to show a little more of that light hitting the chair or a hat coming out here. So that's what I mean. If we can start thinking like that, you start seeing paintings in piles of rags and, dirty dishes in the sink, or vegetables on a counter. Then you see paintings all over the place.
Yeah.
And it opens up a whole world once you start thinking that. Don't be so subject driven. Okay, that's kind of ironic because, if we do the same subject, we're going to get really good at it. And the chances of selling it's probably better, unless we're maybe painting cadavers or, but yeah, so yeah, it's nothing new. It's just, it took me a while because I always wanted to, get things defined and this and that, and, talked to other artists and read books and looked at good art.
Mhm.
I know the old saying is, I've heard it more than a few times. I'm not there. They say there's two kinds of art. There's good art and bad art. Well, I don't think it's quite that black and white, but, and I was asked to do a how-to book some years ago with Northlight Books, and I suspected, I asked the editor, is it true that the bad art books sell better than the good ones? And she said, unfortunately, yes.
Oh dear.
Because people can identify with the bad art.
Ah.
And that might explain also why our bad paintings so instant, because people, people say, oh yeah, I can identify with that. Or so that was kind of an eye opener, kind of made sense in a way.
Now, your course, The Art of Seeing, is open to artists at every stage, aspiring, emerging, accomplished, etc.
Yeah, I'm not sure that it's, aspiring probably could, but they might, the drawing part is, most beginners just have trouble with drawing. And by the time you're emerging artist, you ought to have some pretty good drawing skills to begin with. I'm not sure the beginners might be overwhelmed in it.
Okay.
If they're, say, advanced beginners, maybe, but I hate to have somebody in there and just, not be able to keep up with stuff.
Yeah. And you also have a mentorship group for emerging artists currently, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Has
That's
that one?
kind of the same thing.
All right. And that starts February 16th. Or
Yeah,
has it already been going, or is it starting? Is that the first session?
yeah, the 16th, yeah,
Okay, cool.
yeah.
And just a reminder to anyone who is new to Mastrius that I'll stick around when we're done at the top of the hour, and I'll talk a little bit about how to join the community at Mastrius. We have mentorship, we have courses, we have these live events. So I'll explain a little bit about that, and then I'll give away a 1-month events membership to one of our guests.
Great. Okay, here's one that gets into not a value study, but a group of photos. Yeah, it does have a value set, but this is one of the Sienna painted.
Yeah.
So it's user friendly.
Mm.
And see, I'm thinking of shapes, arrangements of darks, lights, and midtones to move my eye around. And then there's a color study below it. The thing is, what can be too much is you do a value study and color study, you played the ball game twice. You lose an edge maybe after that. So you may prefer just doing value studies or a color study. But it, or just do value studies of some things and color studies of everybody's different. But yeah, it gets to be a problem. I mean, a lot of artists do that, particularly if you got a complex scene like this.
Yeah.
And sure, okay, it looks good in values, but yeah, what about color? So complex scenes, maybe we'd want to do both, but and there again, it's how advanced you get.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that there's nothing wrong with alla prima. I do that too. I just don't, I just want to do something just direct.
Mm.
And usually I can, but I usually have to have a pretty good reference to work from, something I can visualize in my head that I'm going to change, or, it's already fairly well set up. But yeah, so I do it. And there's a lot to be said for that. And most plein air painters, they don't hardly even stop to do a little sketch, but I at least try to do a little sketch. And when I do, I usually get a better painting. Another thing I might add, that people have an aversion to working in values or black and white, or that. The old masters worked in black and white for 4 years, 4 bloody years.
Yeah.
And I was in art school, it was 2 years.
Oh, wow, still.
And you know what our first color assignment was? 3 white eggs on a light blue plate.
Baby steps.
Yeah. So it was, we were ready to cut our wrists. But it made a difference. We didn't, I was too stupid to know why. But it made a difference.
Yeah, I bet.
Yes. Okay, let me just find. Okay, here's something where I have 2 good reference. I usually have 1 or 2 good photos to work from. I had these 2. It was a camel fair in India.
Yeah.
Like being on a Kipling set. Of course, for me, I just loved it. And here's the value study. I combined the 2 photos, and then I did a color study.
Mm.
And I usually, finished some of my color studies off and enough so that I can, if I'm happy with them, I'll put them in a frame and sell them. But also there's a lot to be said just to do color studies for color studies.
Mm.
I think originally the Impressionists painted from life, and originally just to learn about color and not think about so much about composition. So they're just sit down and just try to get those color combinations
Mhm.
down, not to have to worry so much about composition, because doing it all at once can be overwhelming.
Absolutely. So much to think about.
Yeah, it really is. And you got to be patient. My favorite saying is the 4 P's. It's practice, perseverance, uh, practice, perseverance. What's the other one? Passion and
Patience.
patience.
And
Yeah.
I'm just learning about patience.
Better late than never, Ned.
Yeah, it sure is.
Were you classically trained? One of our guests is wondering.
Yeah, that's the lucky thing. We started out very, we would render like a cow skull for like 6 weeks,
Oh, wow.
or render a piece of cloth for 6 weeks.
My word.
We did that for at least a year and a half. But then we also got pretty free and loose life drawing sessions. Really had some good instructors that taught us rhythm and movement.
Mm.
Oh, and where I loved most, still do, is the quick 1 and 2 minute gesture. The value of those, that they loosen us up and make us think of the big things.
Yeah.
Like the gesture of the model, the movement of the legs, the movement, all that things are important. And then, the proportions and stuff like that. So, yeah, if you go to drawing sessions, make sure they have some quick poses to loosen you up. Art shouldn't be any different than anything else. Why is it any different than sports? Just to sit in front of a canvas and, oh, I'm going to make this great painting, cold turkey. No, scribble a little bit or do a little study or a sketch. Why should we warm up like everybody else in the world?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, just loosen up, just scribble. I just will scribble on my pad or stuff just to loosen, get me
Mhm.
away from being so serious or so stiff.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
We have about 6 minutes left, Ned.
Okay.
And at the end, I always like to ask what advice you would give to an emerging artist that you wish you had when you were starting out. So you can keep that in the back of your mind.
Okay. Well, it's such a yeah, I guess be patient. We're all anxious to get in a gallery or to get in shows. Okay, I was getting pretty good. I was getting invited to some pretty nice shows and galleries, and the best show down here in the country was called the Artist of America show. It was in Denver, Colorado, and had all the best traditional impressionistic artists in the country in it. And everybody, of course, wanted to be in it. And I did too. So I applied, got rejected, applied next year, got rejected. I applied, they'd have different judges or, whatever they would change, which could make it better or worse. You never knew. And if some artists didn't drop out or whatever, there wasn't room for new ones. So I applied 15 years
Wow.
before I finally got in.
Oh my word. That's patience.
15 years, well, perseverance.
Perseverance, yeah, and patience.
Wow, I mean, it does, and we're always improving, and I guess, yeah, it's nothing new. We're not always the best judge of our work, but after a while, you get a pretty good idea, when you're in a show or a gallery, kind of where where we stand in a way. You
Mm.
know, we're all so different. So even that is pretty subjective and gets pretty confusing. So and also finding the right gallery. Maybe you're trying to get in a gallery that's showing all abstract work. Well, if you're a traditional painter, you probably shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
That's a pretty obvious thing, but you know, and find a gallery that likes your work, that loves your work.
Mm.
You know, because if they don't love it, they're probably not going to try to sell it. And try to get in a gallery that doesn't have 50, 60 artists in it.
Yeah.
And some people are selling more online. So yeah, it's nice to have the internet and online stuff. There's drawbacks to it, but yeah, and it's a little different world. So I may not be able to have it, you know, the best advice. You know, best advice is to ask 3 or 4 people. And for my advice is to keep drawing.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to improve your quality, the thing that I think can help it most is draw.
Mhm.
Judgment. You know, you're improving your judgment, which improves the quality of your work.
Yeah.
So I guess, yeah, I mean, color is important, all that other stuff, but I think most artists will tell you, don't take literally the drawing of drawing the model or whatever. I think if you can draw the model, because it's difficult, you probably able to draw just about anything else.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And just because I could draw, well, I got so I could draw a pretty good horse,
Mm.
you know, and stuff like that, because I draw couches, draw fire hydrants, you know, or draw teapots, whatever you're sharpening your eye, and
Mm.
block it in general shapes first.
Yeah.
You know, don't try not to look beyond the little things.
Mm.
You know, a coffee pot is kind of cylindrical. Block in a cylindrical shape. Maybe the top is like a half a orange. Draw it like half an orange. You know, it's simplified. Try to identify the simple shapes in it. That can make drawing enjoyable, where it can be miserable if you're obviously trying to get all this detail and it's not coming out because you didn't block in the big shapes first, and then it becomes a little more enjoyable.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, that is it.
4 ways in what.
We did it. Yeah, that's I love the way that you presented that to us, Ned. Thank you.
Oh yeah, I had a ton more. I didn't, you know, but I think I think we covered, you know, a lot for the regular course. You know, it's going to cover, you know, what is drawing, you know, how can we get good at it, you know, and you know, also, you know, and it relates to the design part, the principles and elements, and you know, even get into a little bit of color.
Mm.
Yeah.
All right, can you stop sharing your screen so we can see your face again?
Yeah.
Lots of great comments coming in. Yeah, thank you very much. That's so interesting. Such a good session. It was fantastic. Excellent presentation and so much information and so many other comments.
Thank you, Mom.
You're a wealth of expertise, Ned, and so generous. Thank you for putting that together for us to kind of understand better the art of seeing, which yeah, has come alive for me now, knowing how you look at a scene, and that's something that would pass me by. You see a painting, and now I understand that a bit better.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, and we all see a little bit differently, that's the nice part of it.
Mm, yeah.
It be enough bravery to put our interpretation down. Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you, Ned, as always.
Julie, good to see you again. Thank you.
You too. Thank you for all of this, and thanks everyone for coming. I'll stay on to talk about Mastrius, and Ned. Yeah, have a wonderful evening. You can stick around, or you're free to go as well.